To all the people who didn't think that Captain America was cool, y'all came out of the Winter Soldier like, that's my man. No, it's not. You did not love him since the first Avenger. You do not count. I'm terribly sorry. It doesn't count. The day ones were there, fam, and they knew how good Captain America was. So don't go on and say that. I'm just joshing. I'm just kidding. Kind of. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not joking. Hey everyone, welcome back to Canon Cinema. I'm Amanda, otherwise known as AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. Today I will be giving you guys my top 10 favorite MCU films of all time. So MCU films and obviously projects, because we got a nice mix here. Officially, after a decade, we're getting more and more, which is good. But these are the top 10 projects that I love, and I'm a bit of an oddball when it comes to the MCU in regards to what I love. So I do it based off of characters. How much do I love the characters in this movie? Are they written properly? Is there a level of consistency with the writing of these characters within these films? Some of them are origin stories, some of the origin stories that I really enjoyed, and a lot of the films in my top 10 are underappreciated. So you're gonna get some surprises. But I'll start with my honorable mentions. I'm gonna give you guys like my 5 honorable mentions that didn't quite make my top 10, which is gonna surprise a lot of people. I'm so sorry. So in my like top 15, I have The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That again comes to character basis. The episode structure, just not the greatest in any of those like first time out MCU shows. You can't say that that was the best part of the shows because they weren't. The storyline suffered because of COVID as well. So I unapologetically love The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's up there because I'm a massive Captain America fan, as you can see. Next, I have Miss Marvel. I really love Kamala Khan. I love that it was a coming of age story, and she's so fun. She's a lot of fun, my Canadian girl, Iman Vellani, and I'm really excited to see her in the Marvels, so the show's up there. It was one of the better shows, I have to admit, that came out. Werewolf by Night is the one special that I really enjoyed because of how different it was, and this character basically just wasn't on anyone's radar, and I'm really proud of Michael Giacchino because he did a fantastic job with that. Really took it back to the old-fashioned monster movies that I really enjoy. They played around with like the silhouettes and the lighting, and that made this, you know, filled with tension. Obviously the score on top of that as well, but I thought it was really cool, inventive. It was kind of like a throwback, and I appreciated that. It adds a little zest in the formula that we have constantly. Next, I have Spider-Man Far From Home. That's a surprise for everybody. I know that one. As an honorable mention, I've watched it so many times. It's really sad how much I've watched it. I love it. I think it's really fun. You're taking Spidey out of New York City. European trip, woohoo! Like, it was just fun. The jokes landed for me. I thought the relationship dynamics were a lot of fun in Far From Home. But I think Jake Gyllenhaal was a fantastic Mysterio. I thought he was a lot of fun. So I think it was cool. I think it was a different way to have Spidey come into his own without losing himself. I think that he found himself because he went outside of Manhattan. It felt like a different Spider-Man film. My last honorable mention is Iron Man, the OG that started it all. I still think it holds up today. Tony Stark is not my favorite character. Clearly, that Tony Stark is not my favorite character, so I just really love the first Iron Man. I do not like the second Iron Man, but I can appreciate the fact that his origin story is one of the best ones for sure, and Jon Favreau worked his magic, so it's up there. You'll be surprised to see what's in my top 10 because I'm just gonna go into it, explain a bit, do a little quick review. Let me know in the comments below if you appreciate my honorable mentions, if you think that they're underappreciated like I do. Let me know if you like those ones, if you think that they're too high on my list and they shouldn't be honorable mentions. Just let me know in the comments below. I'm going to dive into my top 10 right now. So number 10, I have Moon Knight. I think, again, this character is really unique, really special. It is the only television series that made my top 10. Moon Knight had a fantastic story, I think, and it was character driven. It's a strong character piece for Oscar Isaac because he plays 2 different characters, and you get to sit with someone who is struggling with their identity and their mental health. And I thought they did that exceptionally well in this, to ground it and understand the characters and not have it so connected to, you know, the mystic arts or connected to these fantastical elements, even though we're going back to like ancient Egypt mythology and all of that. You do have those things mixed in, but I think what made it so awesome was that you're believing the character, and that if you ground the character first and then have everything happen to him in regards to ancient Egyptian lore, like this was, I think you even believe in the lore a little bit. Moon Knight really surprised me. I think everything was polished. I love the action scenes. I love the suit. That gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous suit. One of the best suits in the MCU. Sure, the villain wasn't the greatest, but you're getting Ethan Hawke as Arthur Harrow, even though he didn't do much. So I think them going toe-to-toe was a lot of fun. Oscar Isaac had a lot of room to showcase how brilliant he is and how talented he is. And I think it's one of the best performances in the MCU. So that's why he's in my 10th spot. Number 9, I have Iron Man 3. So I don't hate Tony Stark as much as you guys think I do. I do like him. I think because Iron Man 3, again, grounds our hero. Because Tony is like this arrogant, self-centered person. The more he stays as Iron Man, he kind of breaks that down, you know, and then it gets to the point where he's been through so much as Iron Man that it affects Tony Stark's mental health. And that's what's addressed in Iron Man 3, which then made me connect to Tony on a different level than I would have as like the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist that he kept saying that he was. So I think that the more you break down Iron Man as a hero, you're breaking that person as Tony Stark. And we have to remember that, you know, Tony, apart from his arc reactor, is like, he's human. So I think that they really, again, grounded this. It's a character piece, a very strong character piece for Robert Downey Jr. One of my favorite third installments of any trilogy. That's why he has one of the best character arcs in the MCU if they ended it with Iron Man 3. But they didn't. But that's besides the point. That's besides the point. They wanted to keep Tony in. You had to keep Tony in. Obviously, I get that 100%. But it just, as a trilogy, that's the one that really just closed everything off for a character. And I really, really enjoyed it. Moving on to my 8th spot, which is like the most underappreciated origin story in the MCU, is obviously Captain America, the First Avenger. I remember that this did not do well at the box office. Not many people knew who Chris Evans was. They thought that he, you know, the character of Steve Rogers was like this old-fashioned lame-o who didn't really have any powers. He's just basic boots on the ground type of hero. The thing about the First Avenger is that I never see Captain America on screen. I always see Steve Rogers. And the reason why I always see Steve Rogers is the one line that Stanley Tucci has. The reason why they're choosing you for this trial with the serum is that you have a good heart. And as long as you have a good heart, whatever that alters in your body is still going to make you a good person. So you're always going to be Steve Rogers at heart, because Captain America is obviously like his alter ego. So whenever I look at Cap and making those decisions, I still see that scrawny kid from Brooklyn, you know, getting his ass beat in the alleyway where Bucky had to go save him. And I still see that guy. I never look at him as like, oh, this big muscular Captain America. Sure, Chris Evans is a very attractive person. I'm not saying he's not an attractive person, but I value that, because you do fight for the little guy. You envision that version of Steve Rogers. And I think that that's what's just so hopeful and beautiful within the First Avenger. And the fact that his first villain is Red Skull, I think that's also really important to set the tone of like what that does for Hydra later on, and that connection. So I think it's an excellent foundation piece for the First Avenger. It's the same thing with Bucky. Just the entire Captain America world is just so fascinating to me, because it is rooted in friendship, it's rooted in love, it's rooted in these human qualities, and he's just a man trying to like navigate and live his life. There are a lot of things that I love about the First Avenger, so I have that up there in my top 10. I think it's one of the best origin stories, to be honest, and it felt so, you know, old-fashioned, but at the same time, those ideals and values can still resonate with people today. And I think that's really important to showcase with a hero. And that's what they did with the first Avenger. Next, I have a Phase 4 movie. Ooh, I have a Phase 4 movie. Shocking. And that's Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That is one of the best Phase 4 movies. Telling you right now, fantastic. I thought the action set pieces were incredible. When you mix that choreo, that different type of martial arts within the combat, my favorite thing is hand-to-hand combat. Let me see what your hero can do hand-to-hand. Sure, you got guns. Sure, you got little blasters. That's fine. Cool. Show me that hand-to-hand combat. Let's see what you're made of. And I think that's what Shang-Chi brought to this. It's a different fighting technique, 100%. Simu Liu, Canadian, what up, bud? So great. I thought he sold it. Michelle Yeoh, queen that she is, she's in this too. Thought she was fantastic. Okay. The Scene Stealer is Tony Leung as Wenwu, one of my favorite characters in the MCU. And I was just blown away. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's very entertaining because it felt so different. It felt like it was a breath of fresh air into the MCU because we have a different character dealing with, you know, different things. It's different cultures, different fighting techniques. It's not the same run-of-the-mill stuff that we have. And I think that Shang-Chi deserves to be in everyone's top 10 because even though, of course, you still have the same story beats, I get that formula-wise, it comes down to the writing and it comes down to the characters as well. So if I'm believing that this character can do X, Y, and Z, boom, it's just going to be magic and it's going to work. And that's what happens with Shang-Chi. And I really enjoyed it for that reason. It's so good. It's a lot of fun. So coming up next in my 6th spot, I have my little Ant-Man. I'm a little Ant-Man. I do. I love Ant-Man. You guys saw my Quantumania video. I absolutely love Scott Lang. I thought that first one was just, again, so refreshing, change of pace, because it wasn't only a superhero film, it was a heist film, and you had the strength of like conducting the heist, and it wasn't only one heist, there were multiple heists before you got to the big one, and it was just the way it was set and who Scott had to fight first, which was Yellow Jacket Darren. It was a lot of fun, and more importantly, you got a sense of who Scott was based on the fact that he was a convict, of course, but he had a heart. Again, he's very grounded with his family. He loves his daughter Cassie. He would die for his daughter Cassie and do anything for her. And so he does things the backwards way, but he shows people that he does care. So you need a thief. And the reason why I loved Ant-Man is the fact that we do not start with Hank Pym as Ant-Man, and he's showing him, you know, he's showing Scott the ropes. And I think that's really cool. So that it's consistently like this duality of like, you have the Ant-Man, the OG, as the brain for Scott, kind of, and they're working together. So you have both of them there. And I love that. I love the father-daughter relationship between him and Cassie. I love that you have a family dynamic, even though, you know, they're divorced, you know, his ex-wife is married, Cassie has a stepfather. There's no poor treatment there. They are a very loving family, and it shows a different family unit, which I appreciate as well. I think because there's so many different, like, wonderful family moments, there's father-daughter moments between Hope and Hank as well. I think that's where my heart is, and I love Ant-Man so much. On top of that, the visual style for the fight sequences is so fun. The Thomas the Tank Engine scene, it's just one of the greatest things. It's just burned into my memory. But the fact that Peyton Reed also played with those visuals where you can shrink and grow in size, the possibilities are endless. So I think because of what Ant-Man is, the suit and the Pym particles and all of that, he had fun with it, and you could tell that they had fun making this Ant-Man because there's so many different ways to do things in his world, and it was a nice change of pace. So if you guys agree with like my bottom 5 out of my top 10, let me know in the comments below. If you think I should like move some things, where are there films, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to move into my top 5 now, the ones that have been consistently there. But in my 5th spot, I do have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, directed by James Gunn. You have a group of people who are all outsiders. And since I feel like I'm kind of an outcast sometimes, majority of my life, you click. All these misfits, these outcasts, these people who think that they're different, I'm going to resonate with at least one character in Guardians. So I love that you have, again, these different people coming together. Okay, they have banter, they have really dry sarcasm, witty humor between like Rocket and Peter are probably like the funniest ones in the entire movie. I just love their dynamic. Again, you're trying to steal something, so that was fun too. They end up in jail together. They work together to get out. Like I think that the first Guardians film is textbook, but because you have these great characters coming together as a different family, it worked. It's different than an Avengers film. I think the Guardians do feel more so of a family than the Avengers, which is really interesting. But Guardians was a lot of fun. The soundtrack's great. And it's because it's funny. That's why I like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. I think the character dynamics and the interactions are awesome. I love the way that they made the galaxy look, they made space look, the planets all looked really cool and lived in. I think that's the difference too, is that again, it's believable that it's not on green screen. Coming in at number 4, I have the best Avengers movie, which is Avengers Infinity War. Objectively, and I'm saying it objectively, that is the best Avengers film. Nothing will ever compare to Infinity War. I don't care. It will never. The stakes were up here. We didn't know who the hell was going to die or not. Did we know? No, we had no idea. Why? They killed Loki within the first 5 minutes of this film. We didn't know what the hell who was going to die. We didn't know. That's what gets you, because we felt shit. None of our heroes are safe because we don't know how big of a threat Thanos is. We have no idea what he's capable of. We know that he has to get these Infinity Stones. We're just freaking out because of what happens within those first 5 minutes with Loki and Thor and Heimdall, even Heimdall dying, Hulk getting scared. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I like struggled to breathe in Infinity War. I genuinely thought all of my fave heroes were going to die. Tell me if you've ever felt that after Infinity War. Didn't. You didn't. Because Endgame, you kind of knew what had to happen. Maybe because I'm not a Tony Stark fan, so I didn't really like the whole snap. I'm like, of course he did. But there was a way to work around that. There was a way to work around that, because if the Hulk snapped, he would have been fine. So it should have been a Hulk snap, but that's besides the point. I'm not going to get into that. They could have saved Tony Stark, but I can't deal with that. The stakes have never been higher than in Infinity War. And even when I watch it and I know that X, Y, and Z, they're going to die, I still feel it. I felt more when Tony Stark got stabbed in the stomach from Thanos than him actually doing the snap in Endgame. That says a lot. It really does. And it's so sad that I said that. But like, Infinity War is just phenomenal. The best Avengers movie, hands down. Next, I have another origin story that completely blew my mind, and that goes to Ryan Coogler, and it is Black Panther. I love that film. I know everyone complains about the final battle with the CGI and blah, 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 blah. I don't care. I don't care. What they did with this movie was like a cultural phenomenon. The tide changed. I don't know what electricity was running through everybody when Black Panther came out. That thing was out, and people talked about it for an entire year. It became everyone's personality for an entire year. Okay, that soundtrack was fire. So good. The whole cast, chef's kiss, gorgeous. Like, every single performance was perfect. I just loved that we got to see Wakanda. We're presented to a whole different world, a whole different culture within, comic books. And I think that that's so awesome. I felt everything that these characters were going through. I loved them all. They were so funny. But more importantly, our king, Chadwick Boseman, who I miss so much, he was just the living, breathing definition of, who a king should be. And he brought that to the character of T'Challa. And you could see that. You could feel that. It was believable. It was very believable. I loved Killmonger. I think Killmonger is one of my favorite villains, if you want to call him a villain. He's fantastic in this. I think the chemistry between the entire cast is brilliant. I love the way that we started with like a story time at the beginning to give you a bit of backstory about Black Panther and Wakanda. I personally think that Okoye is one of the baddest women in the MCU. I love Denai Guerrera. She freaking kills it. I love Angela Bassett in this too. And Letitia Wright is a lot of fun in this first Black Panther. But again, you get a different family unit, which I really appreciate. and I love, because that's really important to show on screen. And I think that Black Panther definitely did that. And I love his suit. His suit's fantastic too. It's absolutely gorgeous. Coming in at number 2, I have Captain America the Winter Soldier, which is still God tier. It's still the best of the best. I'll tell you what's in first spot because it's like 1A, 1B, 1C with Black Panther 2 up there. The Winter Soldier made Captain America cool. To all the people who didn't think that Captain America was cool, y'all came out of the Winter Soldier like, that's my man. No, it's not. You did not love him since the first Avenger. You do not count. I'm terribly sorry. It doesn't count. The day ones were there, fam, and they knew how good Captain America was. So don't go on and say that. I'm just joshing. I'm just kidding. Kind of. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not joking. But yeah, you made him cool. You paired him with Black Widow, who's also amazing. They've been working together for years. Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans have been working together for years. So that natural like brother-sister chemistry was absolutely perfect in that case. But the villain, the big boy that we all love is freaking the Winter Soldier. You want to know what makes a villain intimidating? The freaking score by Henry Jackman. You know that Winter Soldier score. You can hear it. You could hear it from the very opening of the Winter Soldier that this score was going to slap and just elevate everything. This felt like a political drama. It also felt like a superhero film, but this was a political drama because of Hydra and how that ties into the Winter Soldier. Beautiful screenwriting. The script was fantastic. I loved watching this over and over and over again, even though I know the outcome. But it's just so engaging. It's so engaging because everything was shady. S.H.I.E.L.D. was being destroyed from the inside. You didn't know what was happening to the ground level ops in regards to Nick Fury, you know? And I think everyone that they added into the Captain America world just worked for him. There were no like outside threats. This connected to everything else that was going to happen in the MCU, but it was also self-contained because of Bucky. And I think that this was the better way to do it. I'm not going to talk about Civil War, but this was definitely the better way to do it. The better story, the best sequel in the MCU, also best second film out for the MCU. I think that this was absolutely fantastic. Again, they made Captain America cool for all you people that didn't realize he already was. And he's awesome. Okay, he's more than a goody two shoes. He's a bit of a rogue one, this one. He is, and we got to see that with Nomad Steve in Infinity War. So I think that the Winter Soldier is always going to be my favorite. There's no way that anything's going to top this. And like I said, it's interchangeable with my first spot, which is Spider-Man No Way Home. And I think that No Way Home just hit all those beats of the nostalgia factor, but it also made for a really wicked Spider-Man movie. One of the best Spider-Man movies that has ever been created. You get a little bit of everything. You get a little bit of Tobey and Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. You get the legendary Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin coming back. You get Andrew back. You know, you get Andrew back. I think there were a lot of moving parts that did work with No Way Home, but a lot that didn't work at the same time. But it's just the fact of sitting there and feeling like a kid again. I felt like a gigantic kid with a big smile on my face when Ned was like conjuring up and using the ring to kind of project and see where Spider-Man was. And you see like Andrew first, and then you see Tobey first. Nothing in the world has ever made me have a big smile on my face and cry at the exact same time. Because I think everyone's mostly connected to Spider-Man because we've had him for so long. I know that people love Batman and Superman, that's fine, but there's just something about Spidey. There's always been something about Spidey, and you can see that and you can feel that with No Way Home, and everyone has their Spider-Man. But together here in this multiversal storyline is the fact that you have them together and you kind of see that they're all similar, obviously, and amazing in their own way, and that's what really pulls on the heartstrings. I love that we got all three of them together. I do. I think that that's like the top of the top. Like, how are you going to top that? Especially because you bring Tobey back, who's just, you know, the most notable Spider-Man in my eyes, and that's my childhood. Like, his voice alone brings tears to my eyes, because that's my childhood, you know. It's my childhood. It's our childhood, you know. To the 90s babies, it's who we grew up with. And you know, in the early 2000s, people grew up with Andrew, and I don't think he got a fair shot at it, but he grew, you know, you grew up with Andrew, and now another generation is growing up with Tom. So to have all three of them together and be reintroduced to the Spider-Mans came before Tom is really special and important. So I keep flipping No Way Home and The Winter Soldier, don't get me wrong. I think that I love No Way Home for different reasons than I love The Winter Soldier, and that's fine. Everyone has their favorites, but those are my top 10. I know they're kind of out there. I know I have some underappreciated ones, but that's where I always like lean towards. If you've seen my top 10s, like the movies of the year and stuff like that, it's the underappreciated ones. And especially with MCU and you know, even DC movies, it's always the underappreciated ones that I tend to root for, that I tend to love a bit more, just because there's not enough appreciation for them. So please, in the comments, let me know what your top 10 MCU films are of all time. I was waiting to do this video, and I think now's the right time to put this out there. If you agree with me, let me know in the comments. I have some weird ones up here, I know, but let me know in the comments below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. You can always follow me over at AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. I'll catch you guys next time. Keep watching movies.